India's balancing act in the US-Russia rivalry is not a new challenge, but an evolved form of an old game it has played since independence. When the Cold War divided the world into two rival ideological and military blocs, India chose a path that defied easy classification. Rather than tying itself to either Washington or Moscow, India positioned itself as a leader of the non-aligned movement. It was not neutrality in the passive sense. It was an active assertion that India's foreign policy would be shaped by its own priorities, not dictated by the pressure of external powers. This approach, known as strategic autonomy, allowed India to engage with both sides on its own terms, maintaining military cooperation with the Soviet Union, while also tapping into the economic and technological opportunities presented by the West. Fast forward to the present, the global order is shifting again, though not in a way that cleanly mirrors the Cold War. The US and Russia are locked in a rivalry that is not only geopolitical, but also deeply entangled with issues like sanctions, energy security, arms sales, and shifting alliances. For India, this creates a complicated web of dependencies and opportunities. Russia has been a trusted defense partner for decades, supplying advanced military hardware, technology transfers, and co-development projects such as the Bakhmut missile. The deep military cooperation, along with shared positions in forums like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, has given India a sense of strategic depth in Eurasia. At the same time, India's relationship with the United States has transformed dramatically over the last 2 decades. The US is now one of India's largest trading partners, a key source of investment, and an important partner in technology and innovation. Defense cooperation has expanded as well, with joint exercises, interoperability agreements, and shared strategic concerns in the Indo-Pacific. This partnership has a strong economic and innovation dimension, extending into areas like space exploration, artificial intelligence, semiconductor manufacturing, and renewable energy transitions. In many ways, the US offers India a gateway to becoming a global tech and trade hub, a role that aligns with its ambitions of becoming a $5 trillion zero-cents economy and a central player in the global value chain. The difficulty for India lies in the fact that the US and Russia are not just competitors, they are in many respects outright adversaries. And this affects how each perceives India's relationship with the other. Washington's sanctions regime against Moscow, for instance, complicates India's ability to procure military supplies from Russia without inviting secondary sanctions or diplomatic friction. Meanwhile, Moscow's growing closeness to China, India's primary strategic rival, has raised a question about the long-term reliability of Russia as an unambiguous partner. This forces India to engage in constant recalibration, making sure it does not alienate one side while reinforcing ties with the other. This balancing act requires agility and pragmatism, but also willingness to endure criticism. When India abstains from UN votes condemning Russia's actions, it draws criticism from Western media and policymakers. When it engages in deepening military ties with the US or joins Quad activities with Japan and Australia, the tightrope walk is not just about managing great power sensitivities. It is also about securing India's own needs in defense, energy, and technology without losing room for maneuver. Energy imports are a prime example. India has sharply increased purchases of discounted Russian oil since the Ukraine conflict began, which supports its economic stability but risks friction with the US. Yet, India has been firm in its position that its energy policy will be dictated by national interests, not by external pressures. What makes this balancing act particularly complex now is that the lines between economic policy, defense policy, and technology policy are blurring. US-India cooperation in emerging tech fields comes with certain expectations about alignment in global supply chains and digital governance frameworks. Russia's defense supplies are increasingly linked to broader Eurasian security arrangements that involve China. The challenge for India is to extract the maximum benefit from both relationships while ensuring that neither one imposes conditions that compromise its autonomy. Historically, India's strategic autonomy has been about preserving space to maneuver in a bipolar or multipolar world. But in the 21st century, that space is shrinking due to global interdependence, instantaneous information flows, and the weaponization of economic tools like sanctions and export controls. The more connected India becomes to both the US and Russian spheres of influence, the more delicate its balancing act becomes. It is not a matter of being equidistant from both powers. It is about being multi-directional, building overlapping partnerships that serve different purposes, and managing the frictions that inevitably arise. This requires not only diplomatic skill, but also an internal consensus on what India's core national interests are and how far it is willing to push back against pressure from either side. The power equation of the future is shifting in ways that open both opportunities and challenges for India. And in the context of the US-Russia rivalry, this shift is central to whether India can sustain its independence in foreign policy. The post-Cold War unipolar moment, where the United States held overwhelming global influence, is gradually giving way to a multipolar world. Several regional powers, from China to the European Union to middle powers like Turkey and Brazil, are asserting their influence in different spheres. This diffusion of power creates an environment where no single country can dominate all aspects of the global order, which theoretically gives countries like India more room to maneuver. India's rapid economic growth, demographic advantage, and increasing technological capability mean that it is not merely a bystander to this shift, but a potential architect of the emerging system. India's economic rise is a major factor in this new equation. Already the world's fifth largest economy, it is projected to become the third largest in the coming decade. This is not simply a matter of GDP rankings. It means that India will command greater influence in global trade negotiations, financial governance structures like the IMF and World Bank, and climate change diplomacy. A larger economy also provides the resources necessary to invest in advanced defense capabilities, cutting-edge technology, and infrastructure that can project power regionally and globally. In the US-Russia rivalry, this economic clout translates into leverage. Washington sees India as a crucial partner in counterbalancing China's rise. In Moscow, for its part, sees India as a reliable market for defense equipment and a partner in pushing back against what it views as Western economic dominance. Demographics amplify this economic potential. With a median age under 30 and a working age population that will continue to expand for decades, India has a labor force advantage unmatched by either the US or Russia. This youth dividend can fuel innovation, productivity, and entrepreneurship on a scale that could make India a global technology and manufacturing hub. This demographic momentum also gives India a unique kind of geopolitical power. The ability to sustain long-term growth while other major powers face aging populations and shrinking workforces. India's values. This is part of a larger strategy to build resilient global supply chains that are less dependent on China, while Russia values the stability of a long-term partner in defense and energy cooperation. Technological capability is the third major component shaping India's future power. India has already established itself as a leader in information technology, software services, and digital infrastructure. Initiatives like the India Stack, the Aadhaar Stack digital identity system, and UPI payments are not only transforming the domestic economy, but also serving as models for other developing countries. This soft power in technology governance gives India a say in shaping the rules of the digital economy, data flows, and artificial intelligence ethics. The United States is keen to partner with India in emerging tech domains, from semiconductor manufacturing to space exploration, partly to diversify away from China. Russia, while less advanced in some tech areas, still seeks collaboration in defense technology, space cooperation, and nuclear energy projects. This dual engagement in tech gives India both access to diverse sources of innovation and the ability to play one partner off against the other for better terms. However, the very qualities that give India leverage also make it a prize in the competition between great powers. Both Washington and Moscow understand that in a multipolar world, India's alignment can tip the balance in regional or global strategic calculations. This creates constant pressure on New Delhi to make choices that signal loyalty to one side, whether in the form of defense procurement decisions, voting partners in international organizations, or participation in security alliances. The challenge is that accepting deep commitments to one side can come at the expense of relations with the other, limiting India's strategic flexibility. For example, deepening US-India military cooperation through the Quad and bilateral agreements could complicate India's ability to maintain privileged access to Russian defense technology. Conversely, continued large-scale arms purchases from Russia could hinder certain forms of defense collaboration with the US and invite scrutiny under American sanctions laws. The multipolar shift also introduces another layer of complexity: the rise of China as a peer competitor to both the US and Russia, and as India's primary strategic rival. China's growing economic, military, and technological power means that India's choices in the US-Russia rivalry cannot be made in isolation from its China policy. Washington positions itself as a partner to India in countering Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific, offering intelligence sharing, military cooperation, and economic alternatives to Chinese-led infrastructure initiatives. Russia, while historically friendly to India, has drawn closer to China in recent years. Partly out of necessity due to Western sanctions, this triangle forces India to navigate not just between Washington and Moscow, but also to manage the implications of their respective relationships with Beijing. In this emerging world order, India's ability to maintain independence hinges on converting its economic growth, demographic strength, and technological capabilities into a form of power that is not easily leveraged by others. This means building self-reliance in critical sectors such as defense manufacturing, energy security, and digital infrastructure, while still engaging deeply with global partners. It means positioning itself as an indispensable player in global governance, capable of mediating disputes, setting agendas, and offering solutions to collective challenges like climate change, pandemic preparedness, and the governance of new technologies. The more indispensable India becomes, the harder it will be for any single power to coerce it into alignment. Yet, this indispensability is not guaranteed. It must be earned through consistent performance, credible commitments, and the perception that India's rise benefits not just itself, but also the stability and prosperity of the broader international community. India's strategic future in the US-Russia rivalry will therefore be shaped by how effectively it uses its growing leverage to avoid dependency on either side while still extracting the maximum benefit from both relationships. The shifting balance of global power offers it a window of opportunity to do so, but the same shift also increases the stakes. As the competition for influence over India intensifies, the durability of India's independence will depend on whether it can maintain this delicate equilibrium without succumbing to the gravitational pull of any single great power.